Welcome back to Abington News and Views. I have with me Commissioner Jim Matthews, the chairman of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, and we're really getting into the heat of the issue regarding this deal he made with Joe Hoeffel. In talking with you, I'm learning that there really is a lot of backroom dealing, pardon the expression, between all three of you to work out who's going to be doing what in county government. This is why I'm not understanding it, and you can explain it better. It seems as if it's always a two-man vote, why wouldn't you work as strongly as you could toward getting the two Republicans together?
Exactly.
Against Joe Hoeffel, the Democrat, to strengthen the Republican Party. With that in mind, I want to ask you a question. You basically have, and I asked people about this beforehand, you have priorities. You have Jim Matthews, you have the Republican Party, you have the County Commission, and you have the county government. So where is your priority? Is it to Jim Matthews, to the party, to your constituency? How do you look at your priorities?
Of the majority party that won, I was the one that was capable of leading the county, had done so successfully in maintaining taxes and reducing taxes.
Maybe true, but would Bruce Kester sit here and say, who knows that? How do you know I wouldn't be?
Oh, I think he'd acknowledge in a minute that he didn't know anything about the government. He always deferred to me constantly during the campaign, and frequently on television as well.
Now, he's not here to defend himself,
and that's
obviously.
Not a knock on him. He's one of the best prosecutors this county's ever seen. He just didn't know county government.
And he was adamant about being chairman.
Quite.
So, as a last resort, you went to Joe Hoeffel.
No. After we had 2 unsuccessful meetings of trying to resolve this, Bruce, the very next day, called a meeting of the 3 of us in his office on the 4th floor of the courthouse and said, we have a problem. Okay. And Joe called us a few names and said, you guys, you should be embarrassed that you can't come to the decision of leadership. He says, here I am again, just where I was back in 1992. I have to make the decision. Very well, he says, I'll meet with both of you. And I said, well, you're not meeting with me, I'm going on vacation. He met with Bruce first, then he met with me. When I came back from vacation, Joe called me, he said, let's get together again. We got together and he says, obviously he didn't come to terms with Bruce. I said, all right, fine. He said, I'm not going to support Bruce. He said, the question is, am I going to support you? And that's when we jumped to that next stage of dealing with that 2-2 tie that we had in government, which I wanted to get to with Bruce, but we couldn't get beyond the chairmanship issue. So what Bruce did was he opened it up to the 3 of us for an open discussion in his office. And again, at that point, it was agreed, all right, fine, that Joe would speak to both of us. So when he says a backroom deal with Jim Matthews going and making a deal with Joe Hoeffel, incorrect. It was Bruce calling a meeting of the 3 of us, acknowledging we were hung up, and then Joe saying, well, darn it, okay, here I go again. I got to make the call. I'll meet with you, Bruce, then I'll meet with Jim. And that's how it went down.
Okay, and
so Joe made the call as to who was going to be chairman.
So in effect, you've paralyzed Bruce Kester in a way. It seems as if you and Joe hold all the cards now.
I've heard that Bruce was going to be in charge of paper clips. But the reality is like we've been functioning very, very ably together. The morale in that courthouse has never been better. I don't think in the last 9 years. Bruce and I went out to Harleysville Senior Center today. The 3 of us had a meeting with the Norristown committee last week on what we're going to do in revitalization. Our meetings are all televised in public, and they've been quite affable after the first one, getting over this hump.
So you are working effectively together.
Extremely
You're voting
well
on things, and things are getting...
We meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning on the meeting weeks, and on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings in the non-meeting meeting weeks. So we're meeting 5 times a week, 5 times a 2-week period.
If all this is as you say it is, why do people in your own party say this is just going to have a devastating impact?
It's the same people again and again, and you have to understand something, Chris. This party has been split long before I was in office, long before Bruce was in office, or well, maybe not, Joe's been in office a long time. But there's been a factional split in this party now for several decades. I didn't create that. Bruce Kester didn't create that.
Does this move weaken the Republican Party in Montgomery County?
Absolutely not. Because what we've lost is the 69,000, a great share of the nonpartisan and independents. We used to get a good 60 to 65% share of the independents and nonpartisan because they voted for good government. And we were losing them, and in this last election in November, we clearly lost them. I think a lot of it had to do with Bush, Iraq, a lot of other frustrations. And the gesture I've made in coming to this coalition government that we've come to, again by Joe's choice, selecting me as the most appropriate chairman, reflecting the fact that it's a 6-6 tie in rural offices, we've come to, I think, a understanding that has been reflected very, very well in correspondence I've received from nonpartisans and independents in Lower Merion, Cheltenham, Abington, which is the home to an extraordinary number of independents whom we have lost.
And now it seems peculiar to me because I'm looking at the two Republicans who won, and I believe Bruce Castor had more votes than the two of you, and Joe Hoeffel seems to have held all the cards in the end, the sole Democrat. Is that what I'm seeing here? That Joe Hoeffel basically made the decision on how it was
Well,
going to
you're
go down?
acting as if there's some 2/3 to 1/3 movement here. The fact is, Bruce had 27% of the vote. Joe and I each had 25% of the vote, and Ruth had 23% of the vote. I mean, there's not a whole lot of breathing room between those four finishes.
Okay, now let's get to some other topics. Apparently, after you and after
The three of us met.
well, beyond the meeting, I'm talking about nominating people to serve in your administration, so to speak. Apparently,
Right.
you and Joe have had several close friends that I've read about that you have nominated for county jobs, and I haven't read that Bruce Castor has had any. Has he been frozen out by this deal from even bringing in people he wants to bring in?
Bruce hasn't proposed one person for hiring.
Well, why wouldn't he do that?
I don't know. I don't know. We had our first bond issue come up, and we just approached him for his opinion on who to go to for bond work. We want to make this a consensus.
Let me
Because
ask,
we've had already in this administration, I think we've had approximately 50 votes, and 48 of them have been 3-0.
let me ask you a question about Ken Davis. He comes up all the time. He's
Sure.
the GOP chairman. He's the GOP boss. Your previous administration basically gave him taxpayer money, $7,500 per month,
That's
lobbying.
absolutely untrue.
Okay,
Right.
well, let me finish my question. I heard it was a $7,500 per month lobbying contract with the county. Here's where I see the conflict of interest. About a month after he got this job, taxpayer money paying him, he was named the GOP chairman. Seems to be a strong conflict of interest there. Now, do you mind if you hold that thought and we take a break, think about it for a minute, and we'll come back right after these messages?